Welcome back to Frontier Echoes, where the Wild West comes alive with tales of danger, love, and survival. Today, a young woman is left on the tracks with a cruel note, only to be rescued by a mysterious millionaire cowboy. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Where are you watching from? Let's get started. Welcome back to Frontier Echoes, where the dust of the Wild West meets stories of courage, love, and survival. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. We'd love to know where you're watching from. Let's get started. The whistle of the steam engine cut sharply through the chill of the early morning. The small town of Red River was still asleep, save for the occasional stray dog barking at the wind. On the train tracks, a solitary figure lay curled, shivering violently. Snowflakes drifted lazily, but the wind cut through every layer of her thin dress, rattling her teeth and frosting her hair. There was a note pinned to her side, flapping in the cold breeze, "Unwanted." Her eyes flickered open, filled with confusion, fear, and disbelief. How had she ended up here? Who had left her in this desolate stretch, exposed to the elements like discarded trash? The pain in her ribs told her she had been thrown or shoved. Her name was Clara Bell, barely 20, with a gentle heart that had been crushed by betrayal she couldn't yet understand. The distant whistle of another train echoed through the mountains, louder this time, and the realization hit her like a hammer: she couldn't stay here. She had to move, had to survive, even if every step brought agony. Each movement sent sharp jabs through her body, but Clara forced herself up, gripping the wooden sleepers for support. Her breath came in ragged clouds, her hands turning raw from the cold, but somewhere deep in her chest, a spark refused to die. She wouldn't die like this, abandoned and alone. From the rising smoke of the horizon, a figure emerged, a wagon, drawn by a pair of magnificent horses, their breath misting in the frosty air. Sitting tall on the driver's bench was a man whose presence seemed almost larger than life. His broad shoulders, weathered face, and piercing eyes marked him as a man who had conquered hardships the way mountains conquer storms. He was a millionaire cowboy named Luke Callahan, a man who ran ranches across 3 counties, a man whose wealth could buy anything, except perhaps the warmth of genuine human connection. The horses slowed as he noticed the woman struggling on the tracks. Luke's instincts, honed over decades of ranch life and frontier survival, kicked in immediately. Without a word, he urged his team forward and guided the wagon to a stop beside her. "Hey, you there." His voice was firm, commanding, yet there was an undertone of concern that caught her off guard. Clara turned her gaze toward him, her lips trembling, her body shaking violently. I don't know," she whispered, fear lacing her words. "You don't have to talk. Just climb in," Luke said, dismounting swiftly. He approached her with steady, calm movements, each step exuding strength and reassurance. "You're not safe out here. Not by yourself." Clara's eyes filled with tears, a mix of relief and disbelief. Who was this man who spoke with such authority, who offered help without judgment, without hesitation? Yet even as she reached for his hand, a shiver of doubt ran through her. Could she trust him? After what had just happened, trust was a fragile luxury. Luke's hand was firm, his grip steady as he helped her into the wagon. The warmth of the blankets and the horse's soft breath enveloped her, a stark contrast to the freezing tracks she had just crawled across. Luke climbed in beside her, his presence a shield against the harsh cold, and without a word, guided the horses back onto the road, away from the town and into the open prairie. "Where are we going?" Clara asked, her voice barely audible. "Somewhere you'll be safe," Luke replied, his eyes scanning the horizon, alert for any sign of danger. "And somewhere we can get you warmed up. You've been through hell, and you're not going back to it." The silence that followed was heavy but not uncomfortable. The sound of the wagon wheels on the frozen dirt road, the snorts of the horses, and the crackling of the sparse firewood in a small stove at the back of the wagon became a rhythm, a strange lullaby for 2 strangers thrown together by fate. As they traveled, Clara began to trust him, slowly revealing fragments of her story between shivers and trembling breaths. She had been promised a life of comfort in the city, lured by someone who claimed to care, only to be abandoned when she refused to betray her own conscience. The note on the tracks wasn't just cruel, it was meant to erase her existence. And for a moment, she had believed it might succeed. Luke listened quietly, his jaw tightening at the injustice. The cruelty of the world was no stranger to him, but hearing it inflicted on someone so young, so vulnerable, stirred something deep within him. He had fought for his ranch, for his herds, for the lawless stretches of the frontier, but he had never encountered someone so unfairly discarded. "Don't you worry about a thing," Luke said finally, his voice a low rumble. "I've got enough land, enough firewood, enough horses, and enough grit to keep you safe. You won't be unwanted again, not while I'm around." The words were simple, but to Clara, they were a promise that carried weight far beyond mere speech. Something in Luke's gaze, steady and unwavering, made her heart beat in a way it hadn't in weeks, something that stirred hope and courage alike. By the time the sun rose the next morning, they had reached his ranch, a sprawling estate surrounded by rolling hills, barns, and fenced pastures. The buildings were sturdy, built to withstand the harshest winters and the wildest storms. Yet despite its grandeur, the ranch radiated warmth. It was a place of life, of work, of purpose. And for Clara, it became her first true glimpse of safety in what felt like a lifetime. Luke wasted no time tending to her immediate needs. He offered her a hot meal, blankets, and a warm bath in the wooden tub that had been scrubbed clean for the morning chores. Clara felt the tension in her body ease slightly, the warmth seeping into her frozen limbs like sunlight through clouds. But as comfort replaced cold, fear returned in the form of questions. "Why are you helping me?" she asked cautiously, unable to hide the lingering doubt. "You don't even know me." Luke leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, looking out at the sprawling ranch. "Maybe, but I know what it's like to be left behind, to feel like the world doesn't care. And I know what it's like to see someone who deserves better. You're worth more than the cruelty you've faced. That's reason enough." Clara's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were not just of fear, they were of relief, gratitude, and something new, something tentative, attraction. There was a magnetic pull in the way Luke moved, in the quiet confidence that surrounded him. He wasn't just a protector, he was a force of nature, the kind of man who could reshape a life with a single decision. Days passed, and Clara began to help around the ranch. She tended the horses, fed the chickens, and learned to navigate the barns and pastures. Luke watched her with a mixture of admiration and concern. She was strong, intelligent, and resilient, yet still carried the scars of her betrayal. Slowly, they began to talk, sharing stories of childhood, of hopes, of dreams that had been deferred by circumstance. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of fiery orange and deep purple, Luke asked her to join him for a ride. Clara hesitated for a moment, remembering the cold of the tracks, the danger, the uncertainty, but something in Luke's eyes assured her that this was different. They rode side by side across the rolling hills, the wind whipping past them, the horses' hooves pounding rhythmically against the frozen ground. For the first time in what felt like forever, Clara felt free. Not just free from danger, but free from fear, from the weight of betrayal, from the feeling of being unwanted. As they rode, a sudden snowstorm swept in, thick and blinding, forcing them to take shelter in a nearby grove of trees. Huddled together beneath the branches, their breaths mingling in the icy air, Luke looked down at her. "You're not alone anymore, Clara," he said softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "And you never will be." Something shifted in that moment. The tension, the fear, the uncertainty, all melted into a charged silence. Clara looked up at him, seeing not just a protector, but someone who could be so much more. A partner, a confidant, someone to share life's harsh winters and blazing summers with. Luke leaned in, and for the first time since that fateful morning on the tracks, Clara felt the warmth of trust, of safety, of desire. Their lips met in a tentative, electric kiss, the snow falling around them like silent witnesses to a new beginning. The weeks that followed were a blur of work, learning, and closeness. Luke taught Clara the ways of the ranch, how to read the skies, how to mend fences, how to tend the livestock. Clara taught Luke the subtleties of compassion, patience, and seeing the world not just in terms of survival, but in terms of love. One night, under a canopy of stars, Luke took Clara's hands in his. "I can't promise life will always be easy. The frontier is harsh, and danger is never far. But I can promise this," he said, his voice steady and full of emotion. "I will never let you be unwanted. Not ever." Clara's eyes glistened as she whispered, "I believe you." And in that belief, they sealed a bond forged through hardship, trust, and the kind of love that only the Wild West could create, raw, unyielding, and eternal. From the tracks to the wagon, from fear to warmth, Clara Bell's life had been transformed by a man who saw her worth when the world tried to erase it. And in turn, Luke Callahan had found something he never knew he needed, a heart brave enough to survive, gentle enough to heal, and strong enough to love. They rode together through storms and sun, through triumphs and trials, knowing that whatever the West could throw at them, they had found in each other a reason to keep going, a reason to fight, and a reason to hope. The story of Clara and Luke spread through the towns and ranches of the frontier, a tale of courage, shocking survival, and love that defied expectations. And for those who heard it, the lesson was clear: even in the most desperate moments, when life seems cruel and abandonment imminent, there are giants among us, people whose strength and compassion can change everything in an instant.